When Starfield launched, it felt like one of those rare moments in gaming where expectations and ambitions collided on a truly massive scale. This was Bethesda's first new universe in decades, a sprawling space RPG comprising freedom, discovery, and a sense of scale few games had ever attempted, on paper. And at first, it delivered, at least commercially. The game surged to a peak of over 300,000 concurrent players on Steam, with millions jumping in across platforms. But sadly, the excitement didn't last. Within a few months, the numbers told a different story as player counts dropped sharply, settling at a fraction of their launch highs. On Steam, Starfield found itself trailing not only newer releases, but even Bethesda's own older titles like Skyrim and Fallout 4. More telling than the numbers, however, was the tone of the conversation. The game wasn't being rejected outright despite the mixed reviews, it was being questioned. While certain players did, most didn't hate Starfield. They simply felt that it hadn't reached its full potential, a feeling that was sadly once again renewed with the Shattered Space DLC, which felt like it could have been so much more. And that distinction matters because it's exactly what makes the newly announced Terran Armada DLC and Freeland updates so interesting. The criticism that shaped Starfield's reputation have been remarkably consistent. Exploration, which should have been the game's greatest strength, often felt repetitive. Planets blurred together, points of interest repeated themselves too frequently, and the sense of discovery gradually gave way to familiarity. Space travel, meanwhile, became one of the most controversial aspects of the experience. Instead of feeling like a seamless journey across the stars like what other games can do, it often boiled down to navigating menus and enduring loading screens. It worked, technically, but it never quite captured the fantasy players were expecting. This is where free lanes enter the picture, and it may be the most important change Starfield has received so far. Rather than simply adding new content, free lanes rethinks how players move through space. Travel is no longer just a transition between locations but an experience in itself. The introduction of seamless traversal between planets combined with the ability to walk around your ship mid-flight transforms space into something alive rather than abstract. Encounters, anomalies, and emergent events begin to fill that previously empty space, giving players a reason to stay engaged in between destinations. It's a subtle shift on paper, but in practice, it addresses one of the game's most fundamental immersion issues. Sadly, that feature will be only available within star systems. Interstellar travel will still have to be done via menus like in the original days. At the same time, Bethesda appears to be tackling the problem of repetition more directly. Early impressions suggest a noticeable increase in the variety of locations and encounters, something that could go a long way toward restoring that sense of discovery the game initially promised. Exploration, in other words, is finally starting to feel like exploration. But if Freelance is about fixing the foundations, Terran Armada is about giving players a reason to return. The DLC, which comes for free for those who purchase the Premium Edition, introduces a new narrative centered around a large-scale conflict involving robotic forces, expanding the universe with fresh factions, characters, and missions. But beyond the story itself, what stands out most is how it connects to progression. One of Starfield's quieter weaknesses has always been its endgame. Once players had assembled powerful gear, there was little incentive to keep pushing forward. The introduction of new upgrade systems, including more flexible and powerful weapon modifications, begins to change that dynamic. Suddenly, there's room for experimentation again, for refining builds, for chasing better equipment in a way that feels meaningful rather than routine. These systems matter more than they might actually appear because they extend the life of the game. They give veteran players something to invest in, something to master, and ultimately, perhaps even a reason to stay. What's equally striking is that many of the improvements tied to this update are not headline features at all. They are growing indications that Starfield has undergone a broader level of refinement. Visuals appear sharper, more cohesive, and in some cases noticeably improved. Performance and loading times, a point that was been quite frustrating for a lot of players here, are said, that's what the developer said, to have been reduced, smoothing out the overall experience. These are not exactly the kind of points here that dominate a marketing campaign, but they are exactly the kind that shape how a game feels moment to moment, and the fact that the developers talked about it during their presentation highlights just how loud the community has been about that. Then there is the PlayStation 5 release, which may ultimately prove to be the most transformative element of all. For a large portion of the gaming audience, Starfield simply didn't exist at launch. Bringing the game to PlayStation 5 effectively opens the door to millions of new players, many of whom will experience it for the first time in its most complete form. They're not going to encounter the version that sparked debate at release. Instead, they will step in a game that has already begun to address its biggest shortcomings, one that feels more aligned with its original vision. In many ways, this creates something resembling a second launch, not a relaunch in name, but in effect, a fresh audience and a stronger foundation here are going to experience a significantly improved experience that is going to arrive all at once. So, can Terran Armada save Starfield? The answer depends on what saving really means. If the expectation is a dramatic overnight transformation into a universally acclaimed masterpiece, well, the answer is probably going to be unlikely. There's no single update or expansion that can fully rewrite a game's history, but that may not be the right way to look at it. What Terran Armada and Freelance represent is a shift in direction. They show a willingness to respond to criticism, to refine core systems, and to invest in the long-term potential of the game. They address not just surface-level issues, but also some deeper design challenges that held Starfield back. Also, that expansion is not the Starborn expansion that had seemingly leaked last year and that is still missing in action. What it brings, however, is momentum, something that the game definitely needed. Starfield may never escape the shadow of its launch expectations, but it doesn't necessarily need to. With the right updates, the right support, and a growing player base fueled by new platforms like the PlayStation 5, it has the opportunity to become something different, not the game it was expected to be, but the game it can transform into over time. If Terran Armada succeeds, it will not be because it saves Starfield in a single moment, it will be because it helps set the course for what comes next. That is all for this video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below of the Terran Armada update and everything that it brings. I'm personally very excited about it. I reinstalled the game and I will be playing it, probably be showing some footage on the second channel, so make sure to check it out. I have been the Eradicator. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.